Welcome back to the Self Trust Solution Podcast. I'm Dawn Lede, the Self Trust Coach, and today I'm joined by Adri Kopp. Adri is an email strategist and copywriter who helps coaches and course creators send emails they're genuinely excited to share. She partners behind the scenes to take email marketing off the plate through strategy, copy, and automations so that her customers can stay focused on their own zone of genius. She's also the co-creator of Inbox Academy, where she teaches freelancers how to build flexible, sustainable businesses, offering email as a high value service. But what I love about Audrey's story is that her self-trust journey, the self-trust journey behind her growth, learning to listen to her instincts, even when the advice around her sounded smarter, safer, or more experienced, really evolves and shows here. And so, Audrey, I'm so glad you're here to share with us this journey.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
So, take us back to the beginning of your freelance journey. What did that season look like?
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of a terrifying season, I would say, going from having a steady paycheck, having, all the things of a 9 to 5, the benefits and all of that thing. Um, that already was a real self-trust journey just to take those big steps of, going out on a limb, learning a new skill. I mean, being completely brand new to something too. I actually used to be a zookeeper, so stepping into the online business world was a very new realm for
How
me.
did that even come about?
Yeah, it honestly was like an online ad for a course. And that's actually one of the reasons I love working with online course creators is because it really radically changed my life, right? And so I love supporting other people doing that work, getting, all of these opportunities available to us online and out to everybody. So, yeah, I took an online course for copywriters. I knew I was looking for a new career that would give me more freedom, that would, let me explore my creativity, my writing skills and things. And so copywriting really kind of fit that bucket in a way that I had never known it really existed before. And yeah, so I took an online course and, when I was starting out, I think it was helpful to have a very step by step, system that somebody else had created and everything. But then, of course, inevitably, you're going to have to make some decisions for yourself and what you want to build. And especially the online world, in entrepreneurship, I mean, there's so many choices to make, so many options available to you. And oftentimes you don't even know what those options are until you take that first step, right? And
Mhm.
kind of open the next door and the next door beyond that, and more options open up. And so, yeah, I was, just slowly learning to trust myself and go out on that limb. And I, as I said, kind of like was learning to become a copywriter. But as I was learning that, I kind of felt drawn towards email. I really loved that personal style to it, that type of writing where, you're really talking one to one with a person and you can really be really playful with it. You don't have to worry about SEO and kind of these constrictions on writing. So I was really drawn to email and I knew I kind of needed to pick a niche and I wanted to niche in email specifically. And so I had actually started working on my website. I was actually working with other students in this online course as kind of accountability partners and stuff like that. And so we would meet regularly, and there was one girl in my group, and she was really successful really quickly. She had a lot more time to devote to it. She wasn't working a 9 to 5 at the time, so she was, kind of got up and running way before I did. And and she really kind of pushed against that decision that I was making, that I wanted to go all in on email. And she was giving me, just some advice of, you haven't really done this before. So, don't you think it would be better if you kept yourself general first, right? Like try out different types of copy before you go all in on one type of copywriting. And it sounded really logical. And it was coming from somebody who had some success, you know? Um, and yeah, I took that advice and that fear got to me. And I thought, "Oh, maybe I don't know what I'm doing yet, you know? Maybe I don't know if this really is for me. And I should try out all these different things." And what ended up happening is I did get some clients that wanted email, but I got a lot of clients that also wanted blogs and wanted, sales pages and some other, even Facebook ads and things like that. And I found that especially blogs, which are this long form of copywriting that really require SEO and all of that kind of, restriction on your creativity. Um, I got a lot of work in that department, and that work would take me so much longer to execute and to do, and it felt so draining, right? And so I was working these really long hours. I was finally, I got my business up and running. I was semi-successful, but not nearly as successful as I dreamed I could be, right? I was scraping by at that point and just felt like I was working so hard for what little I was making. Um, it really just kind of, drained me down and was
Yeah.
not the dream I thought it was gonna be, right?
Yeah. What did you notice? Or really, at what point did you realize something wasn't working? And how did that show up for you? You said it was draining, and you weren't making the financial leaps that you knew you could.
Yeah.
What else was going on?
Yeah, I think, to some extent, I think it just was the repetitive draining that, I started to realize, like, there's gotta be a better way.
Mm,
But I think the other really particular clue that I realized was my procrastination patterns. Right, I feel like that shows up a lot of times when we fight our, internal, instincts and our self-trust a little bit, is that I was pushing myself to do something that didn't feel aligned, and it felt draining, and all of those things, and I would procrastinate those tasks so much harder. So, all of my emails that I got to write, I would get done right away, and then the blogs I would end up, procrastinating to the point of working until 2 a.m. to meet a deadline because I didn't start until 6 p.m. that day, and all of these things that are just really unhealthy patterns, and realizing, this is what am I doing to myself here, right? What is misaligned? And that was kind of when I came back to that, like, okay, let me just totally reevaluate my business. What am I doing that feels good? Email's still there, it's still front and center to me, and, like, blogs are still bottom of the barrel to me. I
yeah.
absolutely don't wanna be doing this. And so it was kind of that, I think, that really woke me up to remembering that moment early on in my journey that I had
Mm.
thought I wanted to go all in on email, and not pursuing that, and realizing how much of a mistake that was.
Yeah, and seeing it through that audit of how am I spending my day and what am I like eager to get done and what am I putting off constantly? And what I love about that is it shows that truly procrastination is a symptom. We always try and solve the symptoms. But the truth is it's trying to tell you something and it had an important message for you. So I
Yes.
hope that everyone listening here sees that instead of going to look for what's wrong with you and trying to fix your procrastination, look at what's underneath that. What am I doing that maybe is just misaligned? It doesn't mean you have to throw it out, but maybe there are some adjustments to be made. Instead of making yourself wrong, why don't you look for what can be done differently? And so you did do that. And tell us about what happened there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I love talking about procrastination so much because I used to identify as a procrastinator, right? Which is another big step to overcome and
It is. We
and
love
to
to label
swallow.
ourselves. I'm like, really? Like, let's leave the labels to the designer.
Yes. Yeah, and definitely, having that identity label, heading into entrepreneurship was a challenge that I absolutely had to just
Yeah.
overcome because you can't, have that when you work for yourself and you set your own deadlines.
Yeah,
So,
and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like, you just
yeah.
live into that label. That's the whole point of it. It you are
Yeah.
creating it, so
Yes. Yeah. So when I kind of finally did step into that self trust and And actually, one thing that kind of really helped me too was one of my mentors used to like to say to us, when you're taking advice, really think about who's giving that advice and whether are have they ever been where you are wanting to go, right? And so that was part of that, seeing this friend who really had good intentions for me when she gave that advice. Yes, she was successful, but had she actually been where I wanted to go?
Mhm.
No, she was not an email specialist. She didn't enjoy the same things I enjoy. She didn't have the same zone of genius. And so when I really was able to kind of evaluate that part of it, it was eye-opening, right? Of okay,
Yeah.
like, no, I need to trust myself and trust the path that's for me. So I did the work of completely rewriting my website, completely kind of
Mhm.
rebranding myself and what I do, and creating new packages and new pricing structures and all of that work. And, it was probably 3 to 4 months or, yeah, probably around 3 to 4 months that I was in that like struggling phase of really trying to make the generalist copywriter thing work. And it probably took me another like 3 months to get all that work done of restructuring it again. And so it was a lot of work and a lot of time of having to remind myself over and over again that I'm trusting myself, that I'm
Yeah.
doing this for me, and to really revamp that. But at the end of that kind of 6 month period, my business just took off. It was like once I had that work done and once I was able to represent myself and my business in the way that I wanted to, and had, the work that was in my zone of genius to show for it, it completely changed. And
Yeah.
yeah,
And
never looked back.
it makes so much sense, right? Because when you're both overriding yourself, it takes so much energy to override yourself and try and force yourself to do things that aren't aligned. And it's energy that can be used towards fueling the passion and the desire and the service that you have intended that's calling you.
Yes.
And when you
Yeah.
answered that, of course, you started seeing amazing results. It's so good. Tell us more about that. What did shift for yourself that you noticed? Not just in your business, but how you saw yourself?
Yeah, I mean, we already talked a little bit about the procrastination piece, and what I did find was, yeah, when I really leaned into the services that I enjoyed and what I liked to do, and I wasn't procrastinating anymore. Those patterns really fell away really easily, actually. That, I was excited to get to my desk in the morning and do the work, and it came quickly and easily. I finished early and on time, and it all energetically felt so much better.
Yeah.
I mean, this was the freedom of the business that I had hoped to build, that really came when I leaned into that.
Mm.
And it was, I mean, beyond myself and the energetics of me, that kind of ripples outwards too, right? Where my clients can feel the joy that I put into the work, and then they're more likely to leave raving reviews or recommend me to another business owner, all of those kinds of things. So it just continues, that energy just like ripples outwards from you, I think.
Yeah. And how they're seeing their business and the message they're putting out. I mean,
Yeah.
I love that you bring up ripple effects because we never know how far they reach. But when you're operating from this alignment and this joy and this, like, I mean, of course, they're still hard, but you're not making it harder by trying to force yourself to be and do something that doesn't work for you.
Yes.
Like,
Absolutely.
yeah, there's so much we can't even know. I always love to think about that because it blows my mind. The ripple effects really are completely unfathomable.
Yes.
So fun. And
Yeah.
I really wanna point out too something you said that is so beautiful that, you had the system to follow, which is great, and you surrounded yourself with people who are doing the work, which I also 100% agree with. But there is a point where you use that system to learn the core. It's like when we learn how to drive, we learn hold the steering wheel at the 10 and 2, and we do all these things, very kind of just, I'm learning how to operate in this new thing. But once you have that foundation, you take it and you run with it on your own. in the way that works for you. And so advice is great. People are coming, I think most of the time anyway, are coming from the best intentions, but they can't know specifically what's going to work for you, what's going to work for the people you want to work with. How you're going to figure that out is by doing it and trying out these different things of your own way instead of trying to force yourself into what someone else does. That's why the same people can try the exact same thing over and over again, and they're gonna get wildly different results.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I also, like, see this journey too in terms of kind of you're always stepping up to the next level. It's not the work's never done, right? We all
Yeah,
talk about
it's a
it.
practice. It really
Um,
is a practice.
yeah, and I noticed actually, like, where I'm at now. So, my business was really successful. I kind of found this zone of genius that I love, and, that next step was, as you kinda, explained earlier, I have now 2 factions of my business where on the one hand, I do still serve clients individually, and help run their email programs, write their emails for them, all of that. But then I had a bunch of people actually coming to me, other copywriters, and saying, how do I do what you're doing? I like copywriting, but I really love email. Could I, how did you make that switch or that pivot and go all in on that niche? And then I had another copywriter turned email strategist who reached out to me and said, I'm actually making a course. I've had so many other copywriters ask how I made this pivot. And I'm like, oh, me too. She was like, do you want to go in on this with me? And so we started building this course a few years ago now that we teach other copywriters how to go all in on email
Mm.
and follow in our footsteps. And that has been its own complete journey of self trust because, I mean, moving into a new realm of kind of how you're running your business and stuff, being a service provider is very different from being a course creator. And I was lucky that I had a lot of background working with other course creators and stuff. But it's been a new journey because kind of stepping up and being a leader in your space, figuring out your marketing channels in a new way, it is very different than a service provider role. And I think the new thing too has been, I've learned to very much trust my gut in terms of um, taking advice from just anyone.
Mm.
But I think there's still going to always be that temptation to take advice from mentors who are, really well proven high. I mean, the more that I've grown my business and taken those steps forward, the bigger types of mentors I've worked with, right? The more successful people I've continued to learn from. And I think as you raise that bar, you continue to have to learn how to raise your self-trust that much more
Yeah.
to not feel like you have to take every single piece of advice from somebody who is, a 7+ figure business owner
Yeah.
who has been in those, massive shoes and
Yeah, the circumstances stay the same, right? Like, at every level, pretty much, there's gonna be advice that we don't have, experience we don't have yet, and we're gonna be tempted to go to follow theirs, and sometimes that's a good thing. Here's what I find is where self-trust really plays the biggest part there, because of course, we're expanding our edges of self-trust all the time, and it is a practice. But what we can carry always is no matter what, on the other end of it, you're gonna be okay. Like, it's that trust that I'm gonna, 1, be able to recognize what's working for me or not. So, I trust that I can try it, and it's okay if it's not the perfect thing. I trust that I can evolve it, adapt it, or leave it, and then find the next best
yes.
experiment to try.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, I definitely love that's one that I've always, like, come back to when I do a lot of self-centering work is that I know myself to be an adaptable person.
Mhm.
It's always
So
been,
beautiful.
one of my strong traits, and having trust in that
Mhm.
is, like, the key to infinity. It's like, okay, if I can just
Yeah.
trust that I am adaptable, that I can flex and change and things, then, yeah, what can't I do?
Exactly. And how different that description of that label of yourself is than the one of procrastinator, right?
Right.
Definitely more accurate. This first, this. being adaptable and so true. I love that because you can get great advice, just like your course creates amazing advice to help people live into their desire to be an email strategist. We want that, just like the course you took to become a copywriter. That's an invitation to give people a way to go forward that they may not have known. We can't go where we don't know. And so there's so many things that we don't know if we're, because we're limited by what we see, what we are have exposure to, and you're creating exposure to that. But as long as we always know that it is that we can adapt it to fit us and we can open up new innovations by starting with something known. And I think that's probably one of the biggest ripple effects that you're creating in your business.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. It's like you're showing a way that someone can go, and then they're gonna take it, and who knows what they're gonna do with it and create with it. How fun is that?
It's so true. Yeah. And it actually, I mean, we see that play out already with our students that, we created this to help other people follow in our footsteps of being an email marketing service provider where they're working with other businesses and stuff. And already we've actually had multiple students who decided they don't want to work with clients at all. They want to one of them started an e-commerce business and now she uses all of her email marketing skills for her own business. And another one is becoming a course creator and using those skills for her own business and stuff, and so it truly is, I mean, it just we didn't really plan for it to do that for people, right? But
Yeah.
that's already kind of those different paths that take off from whatever we're creating.
So what do you notice now, or how would you say that you personally navigate? You might still be figuring this out, but the difference between learning from someone and listening to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I definitely am one of those people that was, like, always good with a pro and con list, right? I'm gonna put all this down and make the logical decision, and I think the practice that has changed for me a lot is when I sit down to do that, is remembering the energetics of it, right? And getting quiet with myself and thinking not just of, like, the items that you put on that list, but how do those items feel,
Mm,
right? And sometimes that's as simple as I take a highlighter and, highlight in 2 different colors or something, which ones feel really strong and energized and which ones feel really draining, and
mhm,
because you can make a list of, 100 pros and 10 cons and feel like there's an obvious decision to make. But if all 10 of those cons are this like really weighty, drainy thing, and the pros feel, energized or, uh, sorry, wait, backward.
oh,
um,
yes.
yeah, yeah. Well, like where is the energy that, um, is it, is there more energy on one side or the other?
Mm,
That makes those bigger or smaller than just the length of the list, right?
yeah.
Because I think that that can really help, um, and has helped me a lot to tap into that inner trust and self-trust that I can make that decision based on me and my energy, not just on what logically might make sense to somebody.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be logic. It also doesn't have to feel good. That's why I love that you bring up energy because what I teach at the Self Trust Coach, we look at 5 different kinds of data because so often, especially as entrepreneurs, we're very quick to say something either worked or didn't work. And we miss out on so much amazing data that's in there that can be used to move forward. And one of them is energy data. And again, it doesn't have to feel amazing because sometimes the most incredible moves we make feel like vomit inducing. But
Yeah.
but energetically, you're like, it's a buzzy kind of excitement, but also it makes you really nervous, right? It's fine. It doesn't make it wrong. And energy data can be so useful in deciding how to move forward. It's so good.
Yeah, I love, another thing that a mentor has taught me, because mentors are amazing.
Mhm.
As much as I've said in this podcast to ignore your mentors, um, another one of my mentors has taught me, that, fear and excitement actually feel really, really similar in
They
the
do.
body,
Mhm.
right? And so whenever I feel like if I'm feeling, panicky fear, I always take that moment to ask myself, like, is this really fear? Or is it a combination of fear and excitement? Is
Yeah,
it both? Or is maybe it's even leaning more towards excitement, but there's just that little bit of fear in my body. Like I attach,
yeah.
my thoughts to that little tiny bit of fear instead of the excitement piece. So yeah, that definitely has also helped me to tease out during those moments of, yeah, am I really, and is the fear such a bad thing?
Right. Is this a
Yeah.
worthy discomfort is the way I look at it. Is it a
Yes.
because we're always expanding what is in our comfort zone, right? Because things that are in our comfort zone now at some point weren't, right? Like you used to not be a copywriter. Probably was pretty uncomfortable at first.
No kidding.
Have to go sell my services out there. And now you do it. You've been doing it for a long time now.
Yep.
So, and you've expanded your business. And so, of course, we're going to always butt up against that comfort and everything we want. One of my mentors said, everything we want is on the other side of discomfort. So, we want to like, is this a worthy discomfort? Because even excitement, to your point, excitement and fear vibrate pretty similarly in the body for most people. And it's not comfortable, which
Yep.
is why they feel similar. It's why people get them mixed up. Okay. Yeah. So, when your instinct is trying to get your attention now, how does it show up and how do you respond?
That's a good question. It often just kind of starts in my gut a little bit. Which, they say trust your guts or whatever. It's
Right?
like,
Gut instinct. There
so
you go.
it's so true though, because it does.
Yeah.
It kind of um it also often flares a little bit with like irritability to me. Sometimes when if I feel annoyed at something, I realize like, oh, that's actually just like my instincts, pushing
Mhm.
back against something.
Yeah.
Um, and that often is like a little clue to me. But yeah, sometimes it's a little bit of a feeling of fear in my gut, just like disruption where I'm, ooh, I don't know if that sits right.
Mm,
And then trying to tap into that and follow it, I think
mm.
is the piece that, because sometimes it's unclear, like you just have that feeling, but you're not even really sure what's the pinpoint that's
Yeah.
causing it. Because it may not be, maybe just to like give an example, if my mentor is saying, "Oh, you need to get more visible, you need to get, get on a stage or do this and that stuff," it's like, okay, well, stage feels wrong for me at this moment. I'm feeling, and so my instinct might be to reject that advice entirely.
Mm.
But maybe what it actually is it's the stage specifically, and a podcast feels much more
Yeah.
available. So it's like finding, okay, I can still take this advice. It's being able to pinpoint what part doesn't sit right or what, and then where does my own self-trust, or like my own instinct want to point me
Yeah.
that I can trust that and
And adapt. And
yeah.
I'm adapt the advice to fit you. It doesn't mean that you won't ever be on stage. That might be something,
Yeah.
it's just not a right now strategy for you.
Yep.
That doesn't
Exactly.
make it wrong. Doesn't make the advice wrong or your decision to adapt it wrong.
Yeah.
It makes
Absolutely.
them both work, actually. It's really cool. Yeah.
Yes.
So for someone who feels torn between their gut and the right business advice they might be receiving, what would you want them to know?
Oh, I mean, it's something that is said all the time, right? But like, there is no one correct way. And I think it all comes back to what we were talking about earlier with energetics. When you do the thing that feels aligned with you, the the energy behind it is going to feel so right to attract the right people, to attract, that ripple effect, it's going to go so much further and have so
Mhm.
many more consequences to your success than you can even possibly realize when you step into that energetically, and feel aligned. I think that you just can't even you can't overestimate the consequences that it will have.
Uh, you're gonna learn from them. So don't put so much pressure on yourself to pick the right way. And I would say in addition to that, and you tell me if you agree, is even if you start down that path of taking advice that doesn't work for you, know that you don't have to ride it out to the end.
It's
You can do a U-turn or, a quarter turn whenever you're ready. And so keeping that in mind too. We so often think like when we make a decision, we have to live it out for the rest of our lives.
oh my gosh, 100%, and if you're, a perfectionist, a completionist, like a lot of us are,
Box checker, think. Yeah.
put that on a Post-it note because I think, yeah, it can be really tempting to have to see everything through to the very end
Yeah.
before you conclude that it didn't work. Um,
It's
and
so true, and we can actually confuse that as self-trust. Like, I said I was gonna do it, so I need to follow it through to the end, and that's not what self-trust is at all, right? It doesn't mean doing things blindly out of obedience to something that no longer fits you
yes,
at all, because it is about having a united front and being able to adapt and pivot based on what works for you right now, and staying in connection with that is how we grow that self-trust more than anything so that we can ride the highest of highs and the lowest of lows and still keep going.
yes, and I love that you brought that up entirely because I used to have that, with creating habits and things like that, where people say, "Oh, just make this small promise to yourself, and then, if every time you break it, you're breaking your self trust, and so just keep that one small promise to yourself, and you'll build self trust." Well, if I'm just not a morning person.
Mhm.
And I have continued to try to create morning habits a lot of times throughout my life, and I would constantly break that, self-trust or whatever, and so I just felt that I couldn't trust myself and
Mhm.
that, pattern, but instead, if I just actually listen to myself
Yeah.
and create habits that don't make myself try to get up at 6 a.m., then
Right.
all of a sudden it all works and I can like trust in, myself to get those things done, not in the morning. And yeah,
Why does
it
it
all
have to
pops
be
off.
done in the morning? I know it's so funny. It's like we spend so much of our energy and our time like looking for ways to be better instead of looking for all the ways we already are and working with them to be great.
I
Yeah,
love that.
so good. Audrey, thank you so much for this conversation. What I love about your story is that self trust isn't just about this one big leap. It's something that we're asked to practice again and again, especially as we grow and the stakes get higher. Before we wrap up, for everyone who's listening and feeling connected to you, your work, where can they find you and connect with you?
Yes, so you can find me on Instagram at copy by Kopp, so COPYBYKOPB. And that'll, I think, be listed in the show notes. And you can find Inbox Academy at inboxacademy.co. And I'm also hanging out there.
Amazing. We're going to make sure all of those links are in the show notes so that you can connect with Audrey there. And remember, if you have a self trust story to share, I'd love to hear it. And if you're ready to create your own, I'd love to help you claim it. Visit theselftrustcoach.com or click the links in the show notes for details. And of course, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of the incredible stories ahead. Audrey, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you. This was excellent.